Hello everybody, and welcome to another rant video on this channel. This will be my third rant video. Now, this is a little more organized than the other two have been, and that's just because I have some things I want to show you before I kind of really get into my rant. But this rant is going to be about the community countdown for the Overwatch League that took place this past weekend and this past week, Saturday through Wednesday. Before the regular season even kicked off. So I want to kind of jump into first explaining to you what the community countdown is in case you don't know, in case you didn't see anything about it, and then show you a couple things, some tweets, whatnot, and then I want to get into my opinions and everything, and they'll be tied into the tweets as well. So if you like this kind of video, maybe you'll make more of these in the future, but in general I hope to not have to make more of these, but we'll see what happens. But the first question, of course, is what is the community countdown? The community countdown was essentially the Overwatch League Season 2 preseason. That was a little bit different than last season's, where last season we just saw teams basically play against other teams, with the exception of the Philadelphia Fusion. Every team played 2 games, I believe, maybe only 1 for some teams, but every team played a game, except for the Philadelphia Fusion. So this season they went a little bit different. They wanted to make it kind of a multi-day thing starting on Saturday, February 9th, where we would have team scrims. So it would be 5 games on Saturday, 5 games on Sunday. Saturday, you had Paris versus New York, Atlanta versus Boston, Toronto versus Philadelphia, Washington versus San Francisco, and Florida versus Houston. And the idea was they were just going to be team scrims, right? First team to win 2 maps, and it would be basically like a normal game, but instead of instead of best of 5, it would be best of 3 essentially, but it was really first of 2. So it would be a little bit shorter than a regular game. And the idea behind it was, of course, that teams would go in, they'd play, fans get to watch a little bit early before the season started, and then when the season started, you'd get games that really meant stuff. That was followed up by Sunday with 5 more games, where we had Dallas versus London, Vancouver versus LA Gladiators, Guangzhou versus LA Valiant, Hangzhou versus Seoul, and Chengdu Hunters versus Shanghai. Same as Saturday. Then Monday, it was 1v1 Ashe and 1v1 Anas. One player from each team participated in this event in one of them. So there was 10 teams that had a 1v1 Ashe player, 10 teams that had a 1v1 Ana player. Then Tuesday, February 12th, was a 6v6 capture the flag, and it was all of the expansion teams participating in that. So it was Atlanta versus Chengdu, Paris versus Guangzhou, Toronto versus Hangzhou, and Washington versus Vancouver. And then finally, Wednesday was a 6v6 show match featuring streamers, casters, analysts, whatnot for the Overwatch League, and then Overwatch streamers and whatnot. So people like Emong or Fran, participating in that. So that's the general idea of what it was. But obviously, as I mentioned, team scrims on February 9th and on February 10th, Saturday and Sunday. Now that changed Saturday night following the game between the Washington Justice and the San Francisco Shock. And you will see, at least you should see on screen now, a tweet from Nate Nanzer, the commissioner of the Overwatch League, where he said, "For the final match today and all day tomorrow, we are switching to Mystery Heroes. I was hoping we could have some competitive maps for the community today, and I'm disappointed that didn't happen. You, the fans, are why we do this and why we have jobs. Sorry to let you down today," which was then followed up by a tweet saying, "For what it's worth, our operations and broadcast teams have some important work they have been able to make progress on today. Hardworking pros that I am proud to work with every day. They recognize the huge task ahead of them next week and are focused on delivering an awesome season for you," before closing out his night's tweets with a very controversial tweet, in my opinion, where he said, "Oh, and the, quote, traditional sports players don't care about preseason either," end quote, argument? Sure, except in preseason MLB, the center fielder doesn't play catcher, and in the preseason NFL, the punter doesn't swap in at left tackle. It's about quality reps in your position on the field of play. So I have some issues with some of these tweets, and I'll get to that in a second. But back to that first tweet where he said that they would be switching to Mystery Heroes, and that he was upset that there were not, competitive games. There was a reply to that tweet from a member of the Overwatch League community, specifically from the Florida mayhem, and that is Bare Hands. You may know Bare Hands. He used to be involved with XL2 Academy, but now he is with the Florida Mayhem. He is a member of their organization, so not a player or a coach. I believe he is the player manager. I think he also might be like the head of scouting. So he's something like that. He's in charge of like kind of GM scouting stuff and maybe player management stuff, but I have no idea. But he said if you want teams to try in preseason, maybe give us some incentive to do so. As it stands, tryharding only hurts your team. So that was the kind of first reply that we saw. Bare Hands will be coming back here in a little bit, so we'll cover him in a second. But I want to kind of talk about a couple things, specifically about Nate Nanzer's third tweet, the traditional sport players don't care about preseason either argument thing, and give you my thoughts. So I did actually reply to Nate Nanzer's tweet with a string of tweets and a couple points that I want to cover before I start getting into some other things. So finally, and that's the end of it. But you'll see those tweets on screen right now. But I have 3 main points for the first part, and then the other 2 parts aren't as serious. But the first part is the Overwatch League differs from traditional sports in that players can really play anything at a high level. Now what this means is obviously that if your goal is that you want to watch games that are fun and that are competitive and that are teams that are trying, just because players aren't playing, just because Jonak isn't playing Zenyatta and it's instead playing Reinhardt doesn't mean that the game can't be entertaining and fun. I don't need to see Jonak on Zenyatta in the preseason. I don't really care about that. On his point that, it's about getting quality reps at your position, not really. In baseball, more so than the NFL. In baseball, obviously, spring training is a big part of getting your team ready, but the difference is spring training and the NFL preseason don't take place or don't start a week before the regular season does. And the NFL preseason is the perfect example, in my opinion. This plays into also part 3, that you never show your full hand in preseason. That's what it's all about. When you NFL preseason is a really good example, right? Because I know the NFL better than I know baseball, so it's a little bit easier. Anyway, but when a team first meets, right, they first get together, it's all about kind of practicing and getting stuff together and working and making sure that your team knows what you're doing and getting chemistry developed with all the players. So that's what happens when you first meet, and that's usually several months before the season starts. In the NFL, it's usually over the summer. So usually over the summer, like early summer, like June, maybe May, NFL teams start to do I think it's in May that they start doing OTAs and rookie minicamp, and players start to come and meet and mingle and start to work out and get to know each other and get their chemistry working and developing. Not a week before the season starts, right? The Overwatch League is the same thing. 2 months ago, they started practicing. They've been practicing. They've been doing stuff. They've been scrimming. We just haven't seen it. That's the difference between what happens in professional sports or professional traditional sports like the NFL and esports like the Overwatch League. You can't really have a practice or a scrimmage or a preseason game in the same way in the NFL that you can in the Overwatch League, right? Every team in the NFL is based in a city, and they have to, if they wanted to play another team, they would have to travel to that other team, unless it was like the Jets and the Giants, or the Chargers and the Rams. Teams are in the same city. Like, that's not really what's going on for most teams. So in the Overwatch League, though, everyone's in LA, so they can scrim against each other, and they can do it online. They don't even need to be in the same place. So it doesn't really work, in my opinion, to say, compare it to the preseason of other sports, when the difference is in this is that the players have been practicing, right? And they're not going to show you a strategy the week before the season starts, because they've been trying to perfect that now for months, and they don't want to just like all of a sudden before the season matters show it off. That just makes no sense. And that'd be stupid, and that would be a horrible idea. I'll get back to more on that kind of stuff later. I also followed up with saying, why would you make 8 out of 10 games intra-division games? Most of the games, with the exception of Dallas versus London and Washington versus San Francisco, are between 2 teams that are going to be playing twice during the regular season. I'd rather see New York take on the LA Valiant or the LA Gladiators. I'd rather see London take on the San Francisco Shock, for example, right? Or, I mean, they played Dallas, it was fine. Like, that to me was fine. But, like, Houston versus Dallas would have been a really cool game to see. Toronto versus Vancouver, they won't get to play. any time except for the one time they play during the regular season. So to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense that the way they would go about it is by saying, let's just take these teams that are already going to play twice in the regular season and make them play again before the season starts. So you're really not going to want to show anything to those teams because you play them twice throughout the season. So make it between two teams that don't play throughout the regular season very often. But, they didn't do that. They decided to do teams that are going to play twice throughout the regular season for 8 of the 10 games. And then finally, I mentioned that it's not too late to reverse the fact that the games are mystery heroes, which of course they didn't undo. And that I have an issue with, but that's whatever. I said, mentioning, of course, that a team like Shanghai who need people to get those reps. If you really care about those reps, then let a team like Shanghai get those reps. Now it doesn't really matter now that they have Gamsu, so wasn't as important, and maybe they knew at that point in time. And then I said, of course, that shows my cup of tea. I've never run an esports league, and if I could take anything away from those tweets, it'd be that last tweet. But it's whatever. So that was kind of my thoughts on what Nate Nanzer was saying. I disagree with a lot of what he said, and I think what he said really was problematic because at the end of the day, right? You don't ever in any professional sport show what you have. In the NFL, the best example is that most of the preseason isn't about getting quality reps. That's what you're doing in practice. That's what you're doing in training camp and all that kind of stuff, right? Yes, a team will go into the preseason and they'll start their starters for maybe the first drive or the first quarter, then they'll take them out. Preseason in professional sports is more about we need to see what we have, especially in the NFL. We need to see what we have and who we want to keep and who's going to get cut. It's players who aren't proven. It's their chance to prove themselves and prove that they deserve to be on the roster of the NFL team. With baseball, a little bit more of kind of players who are going to be on the roster, kind of getting those quality reps in and getting those practices in. But for the most part, you're practicing all the time and you're doing those games. The games you play against other teams don't really matter that much. They're just there for spectator. But everybody knows, nobody goes to a preseason football game or preseason baseball game expecting to see high level of competition. No, it's players are going to take it easy. They're going to try to play relaxed. They're not going to try to hurt themselves. They're just trying to get some reps in. In the Overwatch League, you don't have to play in your position to get reps in. You just got to be on stage, get used to playing on stage again. That's what matters most. So that's why I disagree with his argument. And I don't really care that they switched to Mr. Heroes. If they had started with Mr. Heroes and did Mr. Heroes the whole way out, I wouldn't have had an issue with it. If they stayed on normal, non-Mr. Heroes the whole way out, I wouldn't have an issue with it. Obviously, I just think the fact that they switched because Nate Nanzer was upset that players weren't trying hard enough is ridiculous. But obviously, I'm not the only person that feels that way, and obviously Nate Nanzer's not the only person that feels the way he feels. So we're going to take a look here at Brennan Hook, Brencasts, Bren from the Overwatch League. He tweeted out, "Good thing I don't run anything or else teams would be getting fined out the wazoo." Of course, alluding to the fact that teams weren't really competing. So there were several different responses to this. The first one comes from Stylosa, of course, a YouTuber who was originally going to be in that community countdown show match, but had to decline or had to leave it because of health issues. But he said, "They can't have seriously expected internal scrim discipline on a public platform. You'd have to have an ultra shit tier management team to have players on their roles, or God forbid, show some resemblance of actual strats," which is what he's meant to say there, of course, days before the league goes live, which I agree with 100%. Why would you ever show it? It hurts your team to show off your strats. It's worse for your team if you do that. And then at the end of the day, that makes a worse product for fans when the regular season comes. Monte Cristo, of course, another caster, agrees with Stylos' opinion, saying, "I don't see how you can penalize teams for operating in their own best interests when nothing was on the line." To which Bren said, "Doesn't require much, just a guarantee of people on the right roles and the fans get something to actually watch." To which Monte Cristo said, "Why should they give any competitive advantage when they don't have to?" And Bren said, "For the fans, the people that watch these players have a platform and actually get paid the reason they play, and have a living, so to speak." And Bare Hands, I told you to come back, responded, "That's what the season is for." Susie Kim, who is the former general manager for the London Spitfire, now she's on development more so than general manager stuff, replied, "Jinx." Of course, she is also the wife of Monte Cristo, and Monte Cristo also responded to that tweet, but you just don't see it here, saying that's what the regular season is for. Susie Kim, it's a jinx. She responded to an earlier tweet saying the same thing. So I agree 100% with what these people are saying, with Monty and Bare Hands and Susie Kim and Stylosa. The season is right around the corner. These games don't matter, okay? The preseason games. They really don't. You expect players who have for months and months and months now been grinding out to try to prepare for the regular season. The season is now days away, and they're going to be doing nothing but grinding and grinding and grinding when the season starts to try to win games. And you expect these players to want to, more than anything else, reveal their strats they've been working for months to perfect, which would then jeopardize their ability to get to their actual goal as competitors. And what I hate more than anything is this idea that athletes and esports players, whatever you want to call them, are beholden, or everything they do is to serve the fans. No, it's not, and it shouldn't be. Any league, in my opinion, that cares more about the money that they bring in than the sustainability and well-being of their players is bad. And that, to me, is what this screams. Bren, to me, screams that idea, and Nate Nanzer, to me, screams that idea. They care less about what the players' well-being is and their mental state and their mental health and their physical health. Obviously wrist injuries are very, very common in esports, right? You look at something like Pine last season, mental health issues. He left for a while, and so many players had burnout and fatigue. And of course, yes, they have cut back to try to help that, to try to make it less of an issue. But at the end of the day, they clearly don't care as much about the players as they are making it out to believe, because they're saying the fans deserve to see this. The players can do whatever they want in the preseason because they're about to go and work their butts off in the regular season to give us the product we want to see. And it's the worst part is you have Nate Nanzer complaining about this literally less than a week before the regular season starts. What did you expect players to want to do, right? I think the prime example of kind of like this disconnect and this idea that, the players, everything they have to do has to be to serve the fans. You look at something like the NFL, okay? One of the biggest issues in the NFL for the past, 30, 40, 50 years, whatever, is CTE and brain damage, right? And a big reason why this became an issue is, two reasons. One, the NFL realized that hits to the head are bad, and that players can kind of take legal action, and so they kind of have covered that stuff up to try to keep people from, saying that. But the other thing is, what's fun about football and watching it? Seeing people get hit in massive hits. And if you start linking brain damage to players getting hit in the head, or players using their head to hit players, and that the entertaining hits that are going on the field are now causing brain damage, you're going to try to hide that because you're going to lose viewers, you're going to lose players who are going to lose people who want to watch it and are going to want to pay to go see it. So you kind of sweep that stuff under the rug and say, oh, that's not really an issue. It's just people think it's an issue, but it's not really an issue, when in reality it's a huge issue, and they have now since addressed it because the NFL got so much flack for trying to hide this horrible, horrible thing that they were hiding. Now, this is not that level of bad, in my opinion, obviously. There's no real physical issue with this, but I do think there are some mental health issues with that. Nothing as severe as CTE in terms of scope. It's more so kind of burnout and drain and fatigue. But look how many players retired who probably didn't have to. I mean, you had Siegel retired, Mistakes retired. You had Silk Thread who retired because he was like, it's what the teams were expect is kind of ridiculous. And I think it shows that there's a level of a lack of care and whatnot for the well-being of players, and I have a huge issue with that. And it, to me, screams a major problem with the potential of the Overwatch League going forward. If this is what they're doing, right? They don't care about the players. What the players do is serve the fans, and it shouldn't be that way. right? And it shouldn't be like the players do everything they do for the fans. It should be the fans are treated to a spectator sport, or they're treated something they're allowed to watch, and then they get to watch of people playing the game at the highest level. The league, the way it should be is, and it is for the most part, it should be that the players get to play and enjoy it, and compete and enjoy competing and whatnot, and the fans just get to watch them do it. The fans just get to witness this happen the whole time, and that's what the way it should be. It shouldn't be the fans get to dictate what the players do or how the season and how the league is operated. Now, obviously, money will always talk, and money will always be a dominant factor in what people do. But in general, I think that there's a scary narrative that starts when you start to say the fans are the reason why the players get to play. Because in reality, that's not a fully correct statement. It's not a fully wrong statement. The Overwatch League wouldn't exist if there weren't fans, but these are people that can still play the game, right? The players don't have to play in the league, right? They do it because they want to compete. And they want, some of them maybe they want to make money, some of them maybe just they want to win, but the players have the ultimate decision on what it is they want to do, and they have just spent months and months grinding, right? And they're about to spend even more months grinding to get prepared and to try to win. You get upset when they want to just try to have some fun? My issue with the community countdown isn't that it happened, or isn't that the players wanted to enjoy themselves. It's that there were people in the organization, the commissioner and a caster, who got disappointed and upset that players wanted to have fun more than they wanted to show off their strategies. And I think Siegel kind of put a really, really, really good tweet out where he just kind of explained, in reality, here's what it probably should be, right? And I agree with what he said. And I'm not saying, like, necessarily this is how it should work, but what he said is some community countdown ideas for Overwatch. Every player who is playing should stream. Doesn't have to be the case, but just saying. 4v4 team deathmatch or elimination tournament, all-day event. 1v1 random heroes tournament, all-day event. 1v1 Widowmaker tournament, main tank players only. 1v1 Lucio tournament. Just make it fun. Let the serious gaming be in Overwatch League. And look, Siegel's a former player. I trust what he says more than what the commissioner says, right? It should be, the preseason should be fun for the players and fun for the fans. Shouldn't be drama-filled. The most fun stuff to me during the community countdown were the 1v1 Ana, Widowmaker, or not Widowmaker, Ashe and Ana stuff. Because, like, they don't matter. They're just fun to watch. So why are we trying to basically force feed these players to, like, compete in a normal, like, massive game, and when they've already been doing that? Give them an escape. Let them do something else. I can't speak. Let them do something other than compete really hard. Well, that's all they've been doing for several months, and that's what they're going to be doing for several months from this point on. Those are my thoughts, right? That's my opinion. That's why I think the community countdown was an issue, and it was because of expectations not being met, and a massive disconnect, in my opinion, between the organization of the Overwatch League and the organizations and the teams and the players and the coaches and whatnot about what should be done here, and this kind of narrative that the fans owe everything to the players, when I don't think that should be true. That's generally my opinion on this topic. I'd love to hear what you have to say about the community countdown. Do you think it was a failure in general? Do you think the fact that the event even happened was a bad idea? I think the event overall was a success. It was just that part of it was a failure, and that idea and that topic that kind of came into discussion on social media was problematic. That was really my biggest takeaway, but I'd love to hear what you have to say. I think it would be really cool to have some discussions in the comments, so I look forward to hearing that. But until then, and until the next video, I'm going to leave. I'm going to sign off. When I'm recording this, the Overwatch League season hasn't started yet, so I hope you enjoyed last night's matches. Hope you enjoy tonight's matches and this weekend's matches. I'm looking forward to those myself. But, yeah, thank you for watching. If you liked the video or enjoyed the video, consider liking and subscribing. And I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.